Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, punishment, or a loss of freedom. Many students believe that discipline takes away joy and replaces it with pressure. In reality, the opposite is true. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom, it is the foundation of it. Without discipline, the mind becomes a slave to impulse, mood, and distraction. With discipline, the mind learns to move in a chosen direction, regardless of temporary feelings. Most people wait for excitement to study. They wait to feel inspired, energetic, or confident before opening a book. This approach places control of your life in the hands of emotion. Emotions are unstable by nature. They change with sleep, weather, social media, and stress. When study depends on excitement, consistency collapses. One good day may be followed by several unproductive ones. Discipline removes this instability by creating structure. Structure tells the mind what to do before it has time to argue. Discipline does not mean forcing yourself harshly. It means setting clear rules for your behavior and following them calmly. For example, deciding that at a certain hour each day you will study, regardless of how you feel, creates certainty. Over time, the mind adapts to this certainty. What once felt difficult becomes natural. This is how discipline trains the mind to obey purpose rather than impulse. True motivation is not a sudden burst of energy. It is a quiet inner alignment between intention and action. When your actions repeatedly follow your goals, the mind begins to trust you. This trust creates confidence. Confidence creates motivation. In this way, discipline produces motivation, not the other way around. You move first. Motivation follows. Freedom without discipline looks attractive on the surface, but it quickly becomes chaos. A student who studies whenever they feel like it is constantly negotiating with their own mind. Should I study now or later? Should I watch one more video? Should I start tomorrow? This constant decision-making drains mental energy. Discipline removes this burden. When rules are clear, decisions disappear. The mind relaxes because it knows what is expected. This relaxation is true freedom. Freedom is not the ability to do anything at any moment. Freedom is the ability to do what matters, even when it is difficult. A disciplined student can sit down and focus without inner conflict. This ability creates time, clarity, and peace. The undisciplined mind is busy, restless, and scattered, even when it appears free. Discipline also protects attention. Attention is fragile. In a world filled with notifications, entertainment, and endless information, attention is constantly under attack. Without discipline, attention is stolen before learning can occur. Discipline sets boundaries. It decides when to study and when to rest. It limits distractions not as punishment, but as protection. Through this protection, deep learning becomes possible. Many students fear discipline because they associate it with pressure and fear of failure. This fear comes from misunderstanding the purpose of study. Discipline is not about achieving perfect results. It is about building reliability within yourself. When you study regularly, even imperfectly, you build self-respect. You begin to see yourself as someone who keeps commitments. This identity is far more powerful than short-term success. Discipline also teaches patience. Learning takes time. Concepts often do not make sense immediately. An undisciplined mind seeks quick rewards and avoids confusion. A disciplined mind stays with difficulty long enough for understanding to emerge. This patience transforms frustration to growth. Over time, challenges become less threatening because you trust your ability to remain steady. As discipline develops, effort begins to feel lighter. What once required force now flows with less resistance. This is not because the work became easier, but because the mind became stronger. Strength in this sense is not aggression, but stability. A stable mind is not easily shaken by boredom, difficulty, or doubt. Freedom emerges when discipline is internalized. At this stage, external pressure is no longer necessary. You do not need reminders, threats, or rewards. You act because you have chosen your direction. This internal discipline allows flexibility without losing focus. You can adjust schedules, change methods, and explore ideas without falling into laziness. In education, this freedom is powerful. A disciplined student is not limited to memorization. They can think critically, ask better questions, and explore subjects deeply. Because their foundation is strong, they are not overwhelmed by complexity. Discipline creates space for curiosity rather than suppressing it. Many believe discipline kills creativity. In truth, discipline gives creativity a container. Without structure, creativity scatters. With structure, creativity sharpens. A regular study habit creates familiarity with knowledge, and familiarity allows insight. Breakthroughs do not come from chaos, they come from sustained engagement. Discipline also reduces anxiety. Much academic stress comes from delay and avoidance. When tasks pile up, the mind becomes heavy. Discipline prevents accumulation. By dealing with responsibilities daily, the load stays manageable. The mind feels clean and clear. This clarity is a form of freedom rarely discussed. It is important to understand that discipline is built gradually. It does not arrive fully formed. It begins with small, realistic commitments. Short study sessions done consistently are more powerful than long sessions done rarely. Each completed session reinforces trust between intention and action. This trust is the core of self-discipline. Over time, discipline reshapes the relationship with discomfort. Instead of avoiding discomfort, you learn to sit with it calmly. This ability extends beyond study into life itself. Challenges no longer feel overwhelming. You respond instead of reacting. This inner stability is freedom in its deepest sense. Discipline trains the mind to obey purpose. Purpose is your chosen direction, not society's expectations or external pressure. When discipline serves purpose, it feels meaningful rather than oppressive. You are not studying because you must, but because you have decided who you want to become. In the end, discipline is not something you lose once goals are achieved. It is something you carry with you. It becomes a quiet strength, guiding action without force. Through discipline, the mind becomes reliable, attention becomes focused, and effort becomes sustainable. This is why discipline creates freedom, not by removing choice, but by making the right choice possible every day. Attention is the most underestimated force in learning. Many students believe progress comes from long hours, late nights, and constant effort. They measure productivity by time spent sitting with books open. But time alone has never created understanding. Without attention, hours pass and knowledge does not enter. With attention, even a short moment can change the way the mind understands a subject. Attention is not simply looking at a page or listening to a lecture. It is the act of being fully present with what is in front of you. When attention is divided, learning becomes shallow. Information may be seen or heard, but it is not processed deeply. The mind remains on the surface, moving from one thought to another, never settling long enough for meaning to form. This is why many students forget what they studied only a day later. The modern world trains the mind to be scattered. Notifications, short videos, and constant stimulation condition attention to jump quickly. This habit enters study time as well. A student may read a paragraph, then check their phone, then return to the book, then drift into thinking about something else. The body is present, but the mind is absent. In such a state, learning becomes inefficient and exhausting. True power in study comes from reclaiming attention. When attention is stable, the mind becomes quiet. In this quiet state, understanding naturally deepens. Concepts connect with each other, patterns become visible. Questions arise naturally. This cannot happen when attention is fragmented. Presence is the doorway to comprehension. Studying longer is often an attempt to compensate for weak attention. When focus is poor, students try to make up for it by adding more hours. This creates frustration because effort increases while results remain small. Over time, this leads to burnout. The mind associates study with fatigue rather than growth. Attention, not time, determines the quality of learning. Undivided attention transforms the experience of study. Instead of fighting distraction, the mind settles into the task. There is less inner noise, less resistance. Studying becomes simpler, even when the material is difficult. Difficulty no longer feels overwhelming because attention is steady. The mind meets the problem directly instead of circling around it. Attention also strengthens memory. Information that receives full attention is processed more deeply and stored more clearly. When you are fully present, the mind does not need repeated revision to remember basic ideas. One attentive session can replace many distracted ones. This efficiency frees time and energy for rest, reflection, and deeper exploration. Many students believe they lack focus by nature. This is not true. Attention is not a talent, it is a skill. Like any skill, it strengthens through training. Each time you notice distraction and gently return to the task, attention becomes stronger. The goal is not to eliminate distraction completely, but to reduce how long the mind stays distracted. Presence begins with simplicity. one task at a time, one subject, one goal for the session. Multitasking weakens attention because the mind constantly switches context. Each switch consumes mental energy. By simplifying the study environment and the task itself, attention has fewer reasons to wander. The body also influences attention. When the body is restless, the mind follows. Sitting with awareness, steady posture, and calm breathing supports mental presence. Attention is not only a mental act, it is a whole body state. When the body is stable, attention becomes easier to maintain. Attention changes the relationship with difficulty. When fully present, confusion is no longer frightening. Instead of escaping from not understanding, attention stays with the problem. This patience allows insight to appear naturally. Many breakthroughs come not from forceful thinking, but from quiet, sustained presence with a question. Undivided attention also builds self-respect. Each focused study session is a promise kept to yourself. Over time, this builds trust. You begin to believe in your ability to learn and improve. This confidence does not come from grades or praise, but from repeated experience of showing up with presence. A distracted mind is always in conflict. It wants to study and escape at the same time. This inner conflict drains energy. Attention resolves this conflict by choosing fully. When you decide to study and give it your full presence, the struggle decreases. Even if the session is short, it feels complete. Attention also sharpens awareness of understanding. When you are present, you can clearly see what you know and what you do not. This honesty is essential for real learning. Without attention, students often assume they understand something when they do not. Presence reveals gaps early, allowing correction before confusion grows. As attention strengthens, learning becomes more enjoyable, not because it is entertaining, but because clarity feels satisfying. The mind naturally enjoys understanding. Confusion creates tension, clarity releases it. Attention is the path from tension to clarity. It is important to protect attention intentionally. This means creating study periods free from unnecessary interruptions. Phones, notifications, and background noise are not harmless. They fragment presence. Protecting attention is an act of respect toward your own growth. Over time, attention becomes transferable. The ability to be present while studying extends into listening, thinking, and decision-making in daily life. You become less reactive and more aware. This mental stability supports not only academic success, but personal development as well. Attention is the real power because it determines how life is experienced. Two students can read the same page for the same amount of time, yet one gains insight while the other gains confusion. The difference is not intelligence, but presence. When attention is full, learning becomes efficient, meaningful, and lasting. In the end, the goal is not to study more, but to study more consciously. 1 hour of full presence is worth many hours of divided effort. By training attention, you train the mind to stay where it matters. This ability becomes a quiet strength, shaping not only how you learn, but how you live. Discomfort is one of the most misunderstood experiences in learning. Most students interpret discomfort as a sign that something is wrong, that the subject is too hard, or that they are not capable. This misunderstanding leads them to avoid the very moments that could transform their ability. In truth, discomfort is not a warning to stop. It is a message that the mind is being stretched beyond its familiar limits. The mind prefers what it already knows. Familiarity feels safe and effortless. When you encounter new concepts, complex ideas, or demanding tasks, the mind resists because it is being asked to operate in unfamiliar territory. This resistance appears as boredom, frustration, restlessness, or the sudden urge to escape into distractions. These reactions are natural. They are not personal failures. They are signs that learning is occurring. Growth never feels smooth at the beginning. When muscles are trained, they experience tension before strength develops. Learning follows the same principle. Mental discomfort arises when existing patterns are no longer sufficient to understand new information. The mind must reorganize itself. This reorganization feels unstable, and the mind reacts by seeking comfort. Recognizing this process changes the meaning of discomfort. Instead of seeing it as an obstacle, you begin to see it as evidence of progress. Many students avoid discomfort by constantly switching topics, watching explanations without effort, or waiting for someone else to simplify the material. While these actions may reduce immediate tension, they also reduce growth. Learning requires active engagement. It requires staying with confusion long enough for clarity to emerge. Discomfort marks this exact moment, the space between not knowing and understanding. Resistance during study often takes subtle forms. You may suddenly feel tired, hungry, or uninterested. You may feel an impulse to check your phone or rearrange your desk. These impulses are not random. They are strategies of avoidance. The mind is attempting to return to comfort. When you notice this, you have a choice. You can obey the impulse and remain unchanged, or you can stay present and allow growth to happen. Discomfort teaches patience. Understanding does not arrive on command. It unfolds when attention remains steady despite difficulty. When you sit with a challenging problem without rushing or escaping, you develop mental endurance. This endurance is not about force. It's about staying calm in the presence of uncertainty. Over time, this calmness becomes a strength that supports all learning. The resistance you feel is often strongest just before understanding appears. Many students quit moments before breakthrough, believing the struggle means failure. In reality, struggle is often the final stage before clarity. The mind resists most intensely when it is close to changing. Learning to recognize this moment prevents premature withdrawal and builds trust in the process. Discomfort also reveals habits of avoidance. It shows where discipline is weak and where attention collapses. Instead of judging yourself for these habits, observe them. Observation itself reduces their power. When you see how the mind reacts to challenge, you gain insight into its patterns. This awareness is part of education, even if it is not written in textbooks. Avoiding discomfort may bring short-term relief, but it creates long-term limitation. Concepts remain shallow, confidence weak, and fear of difficulty grows. Each avoided challenge reinforces the belief that discomfort is dangerous. Facing discomfort gradually dissolves this belief. The mind learns that it can survive difficulty and emerge stronger. As discomfort becomes familiar, it loses its threat. You begin to recognize it as a temporary state rather than a permanent condition. This shift changes your relationship with learning. You no longer seek constant ease. You seek understanding. Difficulty becomes a guide rather than an enemy. Discomfort also sharpens focus. When you commit to staying with a difficult task, attention naturally deepens. The mind reduces unnecessary movement because it is engaged in solving a problem. This depth of focus is rare in comfortable activities. It is cultivated through challenge. In this way, discomfort becomes a doorway to presence. Emotional discomfort is equally important. Fear of failure, comparison, and self-doubt often surface during study. These emotions are not signs of weakness. They are signals that identity is being challenged. Learning expands not only knowledge, but self-image. As you confront difficult material, you confront limits you believed were fixed. This confrontation feels uncomfortable because it threatens old beliefs. Allowing this discomfort leads to growth in confidence and self-belief. Teachers, books, and explanations provide guidance, but discomfort provides feedback. It tells you where understanding is incomplete. It points to areas requiring attention. If everything feels easy, learning may have stopped. Productive study includes moments of struggle. The goal is not constant discomfort, but willingness to enter it when it appears. Discomfort also teaches humility. It reminds you that learning is a process, not a performance. You do not need to know everything immediately. Accepting confusion without frustration opens the mind. Humility allows questions to arise and understanding to deepen. Arrogance seeks comfort. Humility accepts challenge. As you continue to face discomfort, resilience develops. Resilience is the ability to remain steady under pressure. In academics, this means continuing to study even when progress is slow. This resilience transfers into life. Problems no longer feel overwhelming. You trust your capacity to work through difficulty. Discomfort is not meant to be endured endlessly without rest. Balance is important. After periods of focused struggle, rest allows integration. Rest is not escape when it follows effort. It becomes harmful only when it replaces effort. Understanding this balance prevents burnout while preserving growth. Over time, discomfort becomes a familiar companion rather than an obstacle. You learn to welcome it as a signal that you are learning something meaningful. This shift transforms study from a fearful activity into a purposeful one. You no longer measure success by ease, but by depth. The resistance you feel while studying is not a problem to eliminate. It is information to understand. It marks the edge of your current ability. Each time you remain present at that edge, the boundary moves. This is how growth happens quietly and steadily. Discomfort teaches you not only the subject you study, but how to stay with challenge without losing yourself. In this lesson lies the true power of education. Consistency is one of the most overlooked forces behind success. Many people believe success arrives suddenly through talent, intelligence, or a single breakthrough moment. They focus on outcomes, grades, achievements, and recognition. While results matter, they are not the foundation. Results are temporary reflections of deeper patterns. What truly shapes success is what you repeatedly do, especially when no one is watching. Every action you repeat sends a message to your mind about who you are. When you show up daily, even in small ways, you are not just completing tasks, you are shaping identity. Identity is not defined by words or intentions, but by behavior. The mind learns who you are by observing your actions over time. Consistency teaches the mind to see itself as reliable, disciplined, and capable. Many students wait for visible improvement before committing fully. They want proof that effort is working. This creates a fragile relationship with effort. When results are slow, motivation collapses. Consistency removes this dependence on external feedback. When you commit to showing up regardless of outcome, effort becomes stable. This stability builds inner strength that does not fluctuate with success or failure. Daily effort does not need to be dramatic. Small, repeated actions have more impact than occasional intense bursts. Studying for a short time each day builds more understanding than long sessions done irregularly. The mind adapts to repetition. What feels difficult at first becomes familiar. Familiarity reduces resistance and learning deepens naturally. Consistency also reduces the emotional weight of tasks. When study becomes part of daily routine, it loses drama. You no longer debate whether to begin. You simply begin. This simplicity conserves mental energy. The mind feels less stressed because expectations are clear. Over time, effort becomes quieter and more efficient. Identity forms slowly. Each day you show up, you add another piece to the picture of who you are becoming. Missing one day does not destroy this picture, but patterns do. Consistency is about direction, not perfection. It is the general movement of your actions over time. When this movement aligns with your goals, identity follows. Many people underestimate how much confidence comes from consistency. Confidence is often mistaken for belief in success. In reality, confidence is trust in your ability to continue. When you know you will show up again tomorrow, pressure decreases. You are no longer dependent on one performance. This trust creates calmness and resilience. Consistency also teaches responsibility. Each day you choose effort over avoidance, you reinforce the habit of ownership. You stop blaming circumstances, mood, or difficulty. You recognize that progress depends on participation. This mindset shift is essential for long-term growth, both academically and personally. Repeated effort shapes attention as well. When you study consistently, attention becomes trained. The mind learns to focus at certain times. Distraction decreases not through force, but through familiarity with focus. This trained attention supports deeper understanding and faster learning. Consistency does not mean rigidity. Life changes, energy fluctuates, and circumstances vary. True consistency adapts while preserving commitment. Even on difficult days, showing up in a smaller way maintains identity. This flexibility prevents burnout while protecting momentum. Many people quit not because they are incapable, but because they underestimate the time required for change. Consistency teaches patience. Results often lag behind effort. This delay can feel discouraging. However, consistent action accumulates beneath the surface. Understanding grows silently before it becomes visible. Trusting this process prevents premature quitting. Identity built through consistency is stable. It does not depend on praise, comparison, or external validation. You begin to see yourself as someone who works steadily. This self-image influences future decisions automatically. Choices become easier because they align with who you believe you are. Consistency also strengthens discipline. Discipline is not enforced by pressure but by habit. When effort becomes habitual, it requires less willpower. The mind no longer resists because it recognizes the pattern. This efficiency allows energy to be directed toward learning rather than self-control. Daily effort creates rhythm. Rhythm supports balance. When study, rest, and reflection occur regularly, life feels more ordered. This order reduces anxiety and confusion. A consistent routine creates a sense of stability which supports mental clarity. Consistency reveals progress in subtle ways. You may not notice improvement daily, but over weeks and months, understanding deepens. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable. This gradual improvement reinforces belief in the process and strengthens commitment. Identity shaped by consistency extends beyond academics. The ability to show up daily influences work, relationships, and personal goals. You learn to rely on yourself. This reliability becomes a quiet source of pride. It's important to remember that consistency is a choice renewed each day. Yesterday's effort does not replace today's. Each day offers a new opportunity to reinforce identity. This ongoing choice keeps growth alive. Failure and setbacks are part of consistency, not its opposite. Missing days, losing focus, or making mistakes does not erase progress. What matters is returning. The act of returning strengthens identity more than uninterrupted success. Over time, consistency transforms effort into character. What began as deliberate action becomes natural behavior. You no longer need to convince yourself to work, you simply do. This is the point where effort feels lighter, not because tasks are easier, but because resistance has decreased. You do not become successful by results alone. Results come and go. You become successful by becoming someone who shows up. Someone who honors daily effort, someone who continues even when outcomes are uncertain. Through consistency, identity is shaped, and through identity, success becomes sustainable.